Welcome to Dysfunctionally Yours, the podcast where we embrace the chaos, laugh through the struggles, and find hope on the other side of trauma. I'm your host, Brittany, and if you've ever felt like your life was a beautifully messy roller coaster of dysfunction, trust me, you're in good company. Here, we'll have real, raw, and sometimes ridiculous conversations about mental health, relationships, and healing, because let's be honest, life isn't always pretty, but that doesn't mean we can't come out of it stronger and maybe even smiling. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of bubbles, and let's navigate this wild journey together, dysfunctionally, but never alone.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Dysfunctionally Yours. I am your host, Brittany, and if I'm being fully transparent, I have no idea what I'm doing today. Like, not any. There's so much in my brain, and I was like, oh my God, I'm just gonna have to get it out. We're just going to have to put it out. And I think today I'm going to have to record a couple of different episodes because I do need to do some batch recording just because my brother's anniversary is coming up and I can't guarantee where I'm going to be. And I don't want anybody to miss out on an amazing episode of Dysfunctionally Yours. That would be tragic. So, with all of that being said, we are winging it, and I have like 3 different episodes like semi-prepped, and then it all started to like run together. And I was like, hold up, let's just start where we start and end where we end, right? I mean, that's the best thing that you can do is just to start. So I am coffeed. This is my second coffee. I was scrolling through the Tickies of Talks and I came across a video of Bethany Frankel making her iced coffee for the day, as well as bronzing herself for the day. And something in all of these things resonated with me. And I was like, yes, I want to bronze myself the same way. And I have all of those things. And so like I used her method versus my method. I don't know that one is any better than the other, but I was like, this is the Bethany Frankel way. And then I was like, let me make my iced coffee that way and see if it actually changes anything. It didn't. I made it and it all worked out to be the same as it always is. But nonetheless, here we are. Also, I think my groceries are being delivered in the next couple of minutes while I'm recording this. So I guess they're going to be sitting on the porch for a little bit. Any hoodles, poodles. I wanted to jump in to my ache and relief of the week. Some people are like, why do you do an ache and relief of the week? Well, I do an ache and relief of the week because I do think it's really important to be able to identify both pieces. I think that if you give power to what ailed you by acknowledging this, like, yeah, this really sucked, then you're putting it out there and you're also like, and I don't want it to suck anymore. So we're going to move past that. Like you don't get to have the same ache every week. If you do, something is wrong. And then my relief of the week, because some weeks are really, really challenging. And I think it's really important to be able to identify something positive in all of that. So I will jump into my ache and relief of the week. First, my ache of the week is kind of just life. Kind of just life, specifically the next month or so as Chase's angelversary arrives. That is a challenging time for me. And I think the weeks leading up to it are actually more challenging for me than the day of and the weeks following it, just because there are so many memories and moments and things of that nature that come into it that I'm like, oh, this was the last time we did this. Oh, this was the last time we did that. And so I'm really trying right now to reframe a lot of those components in a different way than I have the past 2 years. This will be his 3rd anniversary. So it's been trial and error, and I only know what I know. And I only know how to bounce back from what I know how to bounce back from. So we are working on that. But that is the ache. I don't love this time of the year. It's very weird and it's very wonky for me. So with that, my relief of the week, I had some friends come in from out of town and we spent the day running around downtown Denver. And that was a lot of fun. As somebody that's from Denver, I don't spend a lot of time downtown. Like, why would I? am from here. I don't need to. But when people come in from out of town, people want to go see downtown Denver. And so we did that. And we were running around downtown and kind of restaurant hopping. Or maybe bar hopping a little bit. I will say it was a different type of bar hop than I've normally done. I feel like I have walked away from a typical bar hop like annihilated. But this was like grown up bar hopping, and we would go and have a little bite and have a drink. And then we go to the next place and have a little bite and like a little drink. And it was great. And it was a really good opportunity to drink some French 75s. Like, yummy. I really think I just need to make those for myself in my house all the time. Oh, good. I got a 95-cent refund. That'll go so far in my world. Thank you. Thank you for my 95-cent alert. Anyways, so being able to just hang out with some friends from out of town and run around and enjoy Denver. And it was so funny because she kept saying like, it is so clean here. Your downtown is so clean. She said it all day long. And I had to crack up just because depending on who you are and where you go downtown, that would be like, people wouldn't agree with that. People wouldn't say that same sentiment. They wouldn't be like, Denver is so clean, right? Like oftentimes I hear this is just the next Portland, like Denver is the up and coming Portland. And if you've been to Portland, Oregon, it is interesting. It is interesting. A very cool city. Very, very cool city. So certainly no knock on Portland. Like if you know, you know. And if you know me, you know like my affinity for Portland. But anyway, like I hear that and I'm like, yeah, parts of Denver for sure are. But then the way TikTok and social media presents it and things like that, like they're just talking about it just being the worst place ever and so filthy and so dirty. So for her to come out and be like, it's so clean here. Your streets are so clean. I'm like, yes. That's so nice. I said, make sure you go tell all your friends. Spread that word. Spread the word about the podcast and spread the word about how clean Denver is. Like, we are here for that. Like, applause. So that was great. Anyways, so those are my aches. Those are my reliefs. All right. So now into the episode. Actually, I want to talk a little bit more about my friends being in town. So, all right. So we're in town and my friend's boyfriend, whatever person doesn't eat meat. And so first, actually, let me backtrack. While we are running around downtown and we are having all these eats and treats and drinks, right? On the menu somewhere is rattlesnake, like the actual snake, rattlesnake queso. And so the waitress comes over and I'm like, hey, is this like by rattlesnake? Do you mean rattlesnake? Like the like actual like slithery little rattlesnake? Or is this like a code word? Like, are we calling this rattlesnake even though it's really, I don't know, baloney? I don't know, right? Like, who is to say? She says, no, it's actual rattlesnake. I'm like, first of all, I didn't know you could actually eat rattlesnake unless you were, I don't know, living on Survivor or Naked and Afraid or something like that. But okay. She's like, no, it's actual rattlesnake. And they turned the rattlesnake into a chorizo and they put it in queso. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So now I'm intrigued. First, I should also say I don't eat new meat. I stick to my pigs and my cows and my chickens. You're not going to see me eat lamb. You're not going to catch me eat a buffalo burger. You're not going to see me eat random things. Like I just don't do it. I'm not going to eat the deer that you shot in the woods. Like I'm just not, I am really, really weird about like meat in general. And it makes literally no sense. So this is the conversation that I'm having. Her partner doesn't eat meat at all. And so I'm like intrigued, like, why don't you eat this? So he starts to tell me, we opt to order this rattlesnake chorizo because I'm a dick, because I'm petty, because my main character energy is so petty. I'm like, I want to eat a rattlesnake. I want to eat a rattlesnake because if you know, you know. So I'm like, yes to the rattlesnake queso. I must have this. I might start going downtown to get this every time I feel angry. Like the level of petty in me, I'm like, let me go get some more rattlesnake. Like that'll show you. Anyway, so we get it. It's fine. It tastes like queso with chorizo in it. You'd never know. Anyways, so he's talking to me about why he doesn't eat meat and that it's been for like 100 years or 20, right? It's been for a long time. And then he says something about chicken beaks, about the amount of chicken in a processing plant that humans go through. And it's like 5 million chickens a week, which is a lot of chickens a week. I feel like that was the correct number that he was talking about. 5 million chickens a week in this one processing plant. Like, and obviously there's processing plants all over the place. So then we're talking about how much space a chicken beak takes up. How we got here, I don't know. I don't know. Blame it on the alcohol or the ADHD. I don't know. So we are talking about chicken beaks, and this conversation about chicken beaks takes up the entire day, all of the day, all of the stops. And it goes from just a conversation about like, oh yeah, that's a lot of chicken beaks, to being like, I wonder how much space that amount of chicken beaks takes up. I have a friend, she has chickens. I call her and I'm like, hey, how big is a chicken beak? Because in my brain, they're like big, not big, but like if we're comparing in size to a coin, I would say that they were larger than a quarter. They're arguing with me. No, Brittany, they're the size of a nickel. And I'm like, all right. So I call my girl and I'm like, hey, how big are your chicken's beaks? She's like, what? I'm like, in comparison to a coin, how big is a chicken beak? They're like, it's like a nickel. I'm like, oh, okay. So you guys were right. Chicken beaks are the size of a nickel. Again, this is all day. This is not one fluid conversation. And by the end of the night, we're sitting there and now we're like, well, I need a visual depiction of how much space chicken beaks, just the chicken beaks, take up. And we come up with a number. I don't know how the mathed this. Like, social worker, not mathematician. So I don't know how the mathed, but what we came up with was that these chicken beaks took up 107 cubic yards of space. Because I'm looking down, we're sitting on a rooftop and I'm looking down at a truck. And I'm like, well, would it fill that whole bed of that truck? Would it fill up 2 beds of the trucks? Like, how many chicken beaks is this? We are hysterically laughing about this, like crying, stomach pains. It felt like I had a whole ab workout the next day over some chicken beaks. And now that she has returned back to her home, now I still get random, like they've put it into ChatGPT. I get all kinds of just anything that has to do with a beak. I get like, we are fully invested and committed to this conversation of chicken beaks that is now spanning over states and long periods of time. That's fun, right? That is a good time. Like, if you can't laugh so hard till you are crying over the most nonsensical things in the world, like, what are you even doing with your life? Genuinely. It was such a good time. It was probably one of the best days I've had in a long time. So that got me thinking about all of the other random thoughts that I have that are just that I run with on a day-to-day basis or that make no sense. So spanning from this chicken beak conversation, I was like, well, what do they put chicken beaks in? Because they're not just throwing away 107 cubic yards of product. So then he starts telling me about gelatin, and I've never really thought a ton about gelatin, and I don't really think too in depth about all of what goes on in a plant. And he was like, would you ever tour a chicken plant? Fuck no, I would not tour a chicken plant. Why? Because I really like chicken and I don't need to know. This is a time in life where I really enjoy blissful ignorance. I'm going to stay in that little bubble and I'm going to keep eating my chicken, like most likely 6 days a week. You just can't convince me not to. So anyways, I was like, well, what about this gelatin? And he's like, well, the gelatin, and he makes this one this one like mention, and he says, how in yogurt, I'm like, not the yogurt, don't ruin yogurt for me. He's like, well, in yogurt, it's what's used to keep all of the fruit together, blah blah blah, in your yogurt. And I was like, well, fuck, I don't like that. I don't want to eat a chicken beak. I'll eat the chicken. I don't want to eat the chicken beak. And he's like, except Greek yogurt. And I was like, oh, great. I only eat Greek yogurt anyways. So the Greek yogurt saved. However, what I will say now is I don't check ingredients a lot. Again, blissful ignorance, blissful ignorance. The only thing I really pay much attention to about the ingredients on the creamer that I use, because I don't want vegetable oil in my creamer from years ago. And now I don't want gelatin in my stuff. And so now I've been looking at the products for gelatin, and there are plenty of foods out there that have like, is it pectin maybe, which is animal friendly gelatin, but like not gelatin. I'm like, okay, so now that's where I am. So no, I'm not going to stop eating all of the meat, but I do suddenly care about whether gelatin is in my food or not. And I remember I had a person on my team one time, and he was also a vegan, vegetarian. I know it's different. I just don't recall. Anyways, but he did not eat gelatin either. And I remember handing him some gummy bears one time, and he was like looking at the ingredients on this for gelatin. He's like, oh, I can't eat that. That has gelatin in it. And I was like, okay, well, it's a gummy bear. Okay, the sad part about this is now I won't eat a gummy bear, and gummy bears are like my favorite. I'm hoping this passes after I stop thinking about it, and I hope I can go back to like eating gummy bears. But right now, no gummy bears for Brittany, and we're looking at whether gelatin is in our food or not. You're welcome for that story. You're like, yes, this is what I tuned into this podcast to hear. You're welcome. I appreciate you. But those are also the most nonsensical conversations that I have. And this is so normal for me. So my thought today, where I kind of wanted to start, was I know that the last episode was really, really heavy. And I do want to be able to balance some heavy and important topics with something light and uplifting and, sort of like a palate cleanser, like that ginger on your sushi plate, but just like a little palate cleanser, because I want you to be able to breathe, and I want it to be like, okay, I want to tune in, and I don't want it to feel so heavy every single time. And if I'm being very honest with everything that's coming up in the next month or so, I'm working on something. Hopefully it pulls through for some guests to come on, because June is Men's Mental Health Month, and that rolls a lot into last week's episode about my 20-year anniversary, but then Chase's angelversary coming up and things like that. So I was like, this is a really good time to have that. And so I'm working on that. Hopefully that all comes together, and that might be a little heavier of an episode. And I do want to be able to talk a little bit about my brother and things like that. And so again, heavy. So I want a little palate cleanser. So hence all of my random thoughts, my random Brittanyisms that come along. So I was talking also at work about all of my ADHD and the closet. Still not done. Forgive me. Talking about the closet, talking about the ADHD. And I'm like, I swear, like something's got to give. Maybe I just need medication. My coworker, she says, yeah, everybody's microdosing meth these days. And I like had to stop and pause. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that is so true. So now every time I mention it, she's like, just go microdose some meth and you'll be okay. And it is hilarious. And if I have to explain it, I don't know that I want to, but it's very funny and it made me laugh and I appreciate it. I appreciate some of the dark humor that comes with the world that I live in and the job that I do and just all of the things that go into who I am and being able to just laugh a lot. So, there's that. I also was pondering, because I was at one moment planning on maybe hosting a brunch or something to celebrate my 20th anniversary. I didn't, but I thought about it. And I was thinking about, I didn't want people to necessarily have to RSVP for something like that because, I need to RSVP to come celebrate my awesomeness. I make you do that in August for my birthday. But Anyway, so I got to thinking like, okay, well, if I don't want people to have to RSVP, then how do I reserve a spot? And then they don't seat you. And so it got in my head, and I've worked in the service industry, but it got in my head and I'm like, why do we have to wait for the whole party to arrive, right? If you say, all right, I need a table for 7 and you have 5, why can you not be seated? You're going to make money off of me if you seat me the 5 of us, we're going to start with some drinks. We might not order food until the rest of our party arrives, but that might mean you get more drinks out of us than you would have in the first place. Or now we might order some like little apps or something while we wait. So I don't totally understand why we have to wait for the whole freaking party to be seated. If somebody knows the answer, please just write it in. Let me know, because I don't get it. I don't get it. And like I said, I've worked in the service industry. And so it just doesn't make any sense, because what if those 2 people never arrived? You're never going to seat me? My reservation is gone? Or what if 3 of 7 arrive? Is that my fault that people are dicks and didn't show up even though they said they were going to? No, that's not my fault. But you know how many drinks I could have had by now to celebrate myself? I don't understand. If somebody knows, like I said, let me know. Let me know. Also, I wanted to be able to talk about some of the things that like keep me like sort of even remotely okay after being at work all day and dealing with the life things and all of that. And so I spend a lot of time watching crappy TV. And up until COVID, probably, I would have been like, I am never watching reality TV. That is stupid. I want to watch something like quality television. If I have time to watch television, I want to watch something that is quality. And then COVID happened, and, you know, my job really, I was like, you know, I actually don't want to watch something serious. I don't want to watch something that maybe requires brain cells to watch, because I have used so many brain cells all day long. I want to like zone out and just watch something that requires no brain cells. So enter reality TV. I almost exclusively watch reality TV. Well, that's probably too big. Like maybe 70% of my television's consumption is reality TV of some sort. Lots of Bravo, lots of random things that they put on Netflix, like all of the shows that Nick Lachey and crew host. Just really brainless TV that I get to watch and solve everybody. Like, they're not really my problems to solve, but I can sit here and be like, all you got to do is that, and their problem would be so solved. Or also being like, I would never do that, and then being like, okay, I'm never gonna do that because I saw how that played out on TV and that was a horrible idea. So, you know, either way. But recently, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives had me in a chokehold. Just like, that is the most ridiculous TV that I've seen in a minute. The things that they are fighting about, the input that they all feel like they have on each other's lives. That girl, Jessie, is not Jessie. No, who's the Demi? She is trifling. She is absolutely, get her off the show. Actually, she makes good TV because you're like, you train wreck. But like, also, she's not a friend. She's in this for money. She will stab you in the back left and right. She is a liar. Like, she is just, every episode that went by, I'm like, ew. You are a gross girl. You are a gross girl. Like, in the time of the world where we like to think that we are working on being like girls. She's not a girl's girl. She is actually gross. So that is my thought on reality TV. However, I did tune in to a new show that was released a couple weeks ago called Sirens. It was good. It was fine. I enjoyed it. But can we just talk about Kevin Bacon for a minute? Let's just talk about Kevin Bacon for a second, because like, okay, daddy, what? My kid's dad used to tease me in the like late 90s, early 2000s, because Kevin Bacon seemed to be in everything, but I liked Kevin Bacon. And I was like, oh, Kevin Bacon's in this, we should watch it. Oh, Kevin Bacon's in that, we should watch it. And he used to tease me. He'd be like, you have such a crush on Kevin Bacon. And I was like, I don't have a crush on Kevin Bacon at all, actually. And I used to think it was kind of silly that he said that. And then I saw Kevin Bacon in Sirens, and I was like, do I have a crush on Kevin Bacon? And also Steve Carell in 4 Seasons. What? That? You will like, what? I saw him in that episode, in that show, and I was like, who is this man? Like, this is not the Steve Carell that I've watched in everything else that I've been like, you dweeby little funny man. No, what is happening? Is it me? Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that. But these men, hi, sirs, I will drop you my address. Call me. Anyway, so that is all of the random Brittanyisms that I have just in this moment in time that just is free flowing, coming to my brain while I'm talking. A handful of weeks ago, somebody wrote in and they had asked a question in the Google form, and it said, how does one find their softness after all of the trauma? I really like that question for this episode because, like I said, I think there's a lot of really heavy, important topics to talk about, but I also know that people struggle, and I have struggled with being able to be okay or show up in a way that's all right for other people because because we get guarded, right? You go through trauma, whether trauma is brought on by a natural disaster, a flood, your house burned down, something like that, or whether that trauma was brought on by family bullshit, mental health, witnessing a horrific crime. Shit, I know somebody who watched somebody get hit by a car at a crosswalk and like their face was basically falling off. That's traumatic. And that is just existing at a stoplight in the world. So horrible things happen all over the place and all of the time, and we can't really avoid that. But it does change how we navigate, right? Like now you might be more fearful of a biker on the road, or, you're terrified that your house is going to burn down again. And so you take extra precautions, or you become really jaded about life. And, I don't know, that impacts people different ways. Maybe you start drinking, maybe you go, woe is me. I think for me personally, I've spent a lot of time being very guarded, and that guarded part of me has embraced being very abrasive and like impenetrable. And that was okay because that kept me safe. And I know that there was plenty of time where people would be like, yeah, I mean, Brittany is really nice after you get to know her. But when you first get to meet her, she's kind of a bitch. And I was like, yeah, because I don't want to fucking know you, right? There was a large moment in my time where I was okay with that I was okay with these things being said and people feeling this way. There was a long time where I embraced that like resting bitch face that I, would carry, and people would be like, oh, she's nice. It's just her face. It's a resting bitch face. And I was like, great, because it kept people away. It kept people that could possibly hurt me away. I didn't have to worry about learning to trust you because you weren't gonna fight hard enough. And if you did fight hard enough, well, then maybe it was worth it. And I navigated this world that way for a long, long time. And then I think a lot of that shifted, like I've talked about, with the moment that I kind of realized, like, I don't want to be like the rattlesnake when I grow up. And I knew how I thought about her, and I knew how others that had known her a long time thought about her and talked about her. And I was like, I don't want to be that way. That doesn't sound awesome to me. And so it started to create a choice. Like it shifted something in my brain that was like, if I don't want people to call me a bitch, I can't present as one, right? If I don't want people to think that I'm unapproachable, then I need to be approachable. And this was a process. It certainly wasn't easy, but it was a choice. And so I think the overall question of like, how does one find their softness after trauma really starts with making a conscientious choice to be soft. And that means you have to choose to be vulnerable, and you have to choose to allow yourself to be sensitive. And that all by itself can be really, really hard. But I think if you're not in a position where you can make that choice, then I don't know, maybe you can't be soft because you're just going to stay really guarded. And so I know I made some changes, right? Because I was like, I want people to think that I am nice and kind. My friend that was in from out of town with the chicken beaks, I had said something. I was like, yeah, well, but like I'm nice now, not like I was then, referring back to, when I used to talk to her often. And she was like, Brittany, you're not nice. She was like, you are kind. You are a kind person, but you might not always be nice. And I'm like, you know what? Progress. I will take kind. We're going to run with that one. But like, I think you can change over time, right? I don't think that you have to be like, oh, this is just how I am. I think that you can hold up that mirror, or somebody else can hold up that mirror, and you can be like, oh, well, this is what I see. And that doesn't mean that's who I am. So with so many other things in life, we get to make that choice, and we don't have to let our past define our present or our future. Whether that's our past in a traumatic situation that doesn't define us now, or our past version of ourselves. We don't have to let that past version of ourselves continue to be the current version of ourselves if we don't like it. If you don't want to be that person, change it. Just change. And again, I say that very flippantly, like it's easy to do. It's not. I personally have spent a lot of time in therapy having these types of conversations with my friends, and really learning a lot about myself to be as self-aware as I possibly can, because I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. And I want to be better a week from now than I was, today as well. I think that there's a place to continue to grow. And if you're not willing to be self-aware, that makes it challenging. Along with being self-aware, I think you also really need to be able to accept yourself and look at yourself and not let society tell you what you are, and then start to build some boundaries around that, right? Like, again, an example, I decided I didn't actually like this being called a bitch, like, at all. Whereas for a long time, I really embraced that. So one day I was just like, this is not okay, right? If I wouldn't want a man that I was in a relationship with to call me a bitch, why am I going to let my friends call me a bitch? It's crazy. If I wouldn't let the rattlesnake call me a bitch, or my children call me a bitch, why on earth am I going to let my friends call me a bitch and then navigate the world as such, as if this is okay, as if this is a badge of honor? No. I was able to outline like what I wanted to be, how I wanted to be that way, and some of the things that I needed to change. And I really had to understand that that wasn't going to come freely. And so while I was able to implement some of these things along the way, it does take some work, and continuous work, right? Because I got to this point where I was like, all right, I'm not a bitch, but I am abrasive. And I was okay with this term abrasive, right? Like an SOS pad. An SOS pad is very functional. It's very useful. It comes in handy. Nobody's ever been like, oh, that SOS pad is too abrasive, I didn't like it, whenever you're the one that picked it out to scrub the thing off of the pan, right? Like, you knew what you were looking for. So I didn't really think of it as a negative term. I really found this term that I use to describe myself as a very helpful term. Like, hey, it lets you know. And it's like, it's sort of empowering to me. I went into therapy, like with my new therapist that I started working with after Chase died. And I told her this. She like recoiled at this. She's like, that's not a nice word. I don't like that word. And I was like, well, yeah, but that's how I am. And she's like, can we find new words? And I was like, there's not another word. Like, that's just the word that it is. And she was like, no. And so we spent some time reframing the vocabulary used. And like I said, a handful of episodes that Brené Brown said, vocabulary gives power. Like the language that we're using gives these words power. And so is it safe to say that I was more guarded than I was abrasive? Yes. Is it safe to say that whenever I'm not feeling, and I used to say messy, I'm really messy. And she's like, I don't like that either. And I was like, well, I am messy. I feel like a basket case all the time. And she's like, I don't like messy. Messy is, dropping a spaghetti jar in the aisle at the grocery store and it going everywhere. Nobody wants to deal with that mess. Nobody wants to clean that up. Nobody likes messy. But is it okay to say that you're just not okay right now? Like, why does it have to have this big word? And so really learning how to reframe just the words that I've identified to describe myself, I think really also helped to find that softness that I have, because what you say about yourself becomes fact, and it becomes what other people believe about you. And if you don't want that, change it. Give people new words to use. Give people new ideas. Like if I told you I was abrasive, you'd be like, yikes. If I told you I might be a little bit guarded, it's like, okay, like maybe we need to try, be a little sensitive, understand some of these things. And I'm probably less guarded today than I was 3 years ago, but I might always be a little bit guarded. right? But I think at the end of the day, what I know about myself and what I want to be for myself is a better version of myself. And that means continuous work and choosing every day to understand that, yes, I will fall and I will make mistakes. Yes, my trauma fucks me up sometimes. And that means I really need to pay attention to it. I don't get to say, oh, you go away. We're not dealing with you. I have to deal with it. I have to come to terms with it. And I have to be able to process it when it needs to be processed and move past it and not let it like debilitate me. So I think the big question of how does one find their softness after all the trauma is choosing to do so and leaning into all of those supports that you have and really talking about yourself differently. Because what you say about yourself matters. Like I've said before, like you are with yourself 24/7. Nobody else is. So you need to put in the work to make these choices to be softer. And if people are sitting here saying that didn't land well on me, then it really means like, okay, I need to work on that, or at least looking at it, right? Like, I think some of that comes into boundaries, and that's a whole different conversation. Like, boundaries is an episode all on its own. So, that's going to play a big role into it too. But I think you're able to find your softness if you're able to identify some of your own boundaries, because your boundaries are what protect you and keep you safe. Like, you don't have to be guarded. You can just have really firm boundaries, and your boundaries are yours and they can be a little bit fluid. So I think that's how you do it. And that's just what's worked for me. And it's taken years to do that. That did not happen overnight. I wasn't like, you know what? I want to be soft today. And I don't know that anybody would call me soft per se, but I did have somebody make comment last week actually that was like, you have a therapist? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And they said, you just seem so upbeat and so positive. So I would never have thought of you to like have a therapist. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm positive and upbeat, is because I have a therapist. So do what works for you. With that being said, like and subscribe wherever you are listening to, and send this to your friends. If you like this amazing podcast, they will like this amazing podcast, obvi. New episodes come out every single Monday. The video version of this is on YouTube at Dysfunctionally Yours podcast. You can engage with me on Instagram or TikTok at Dysfunctionally Yours, and the Google form is anonymous, and it is on the Dysfunctionally Yours Instagram page. So with that, don't be afraid to be great. Toodles, poodles, bye.